Good evening, everybody. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening, everybody. Director Lopez, roll call.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Bolin. Present. Vice Chair Metcalf.
Present.
Commissioner Matt Duran.
Present.
Commissioner Bacon.
Present.
Commissioner Leonard. And Chairman Ray Halby.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. First order of business, approval of minutes from August 9th, 2023.
I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right. New business. The City of Coolidge General Plan 2035. Evening, everybody. A discussion and public hearing of the City of Coolidge General Plan 2035, covering topic circulation. Other topics of land use were discussed previously last month. So our tour guide, take it away.
Mr. Chair, yeah, thank you. We have circulation and we have some experts be speaking to the subject to answer and help guide yourselves and the public through the process of discussing circulation. Of course, comments can be taken at any time. Public is welcome to continue to make comments as we move through the process. So please don't feel this is your only opportunity. We still have a long ways to go on this thing. So we're open to suggestions, comments, and everything. And Phil, take it away.
All right. Well, like Gilbert said, we've got some of our folks here, Public Works Director, we got county, and somebody from the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Kind of like last time, I'm just going to go through the portion of the general plan that covers circulation here, kind of back it up and just kind of focus on one exhibit, which is basically the designation of the street routes. So here we are, once again, with our metaphorical representation, taking the 2025 plan, transitioning it into our 6 meetings, August through January. Last month was land use, this month is circulation transportation, and feeding into which will hopefully be the update and the approval of the 2035 plan. So I'll just go over these, like I said, fairly quickly here because we got a lot of subject matter experts here and stuff that can answer and facilitate the questions. But basically, this was the circulation element, the way that it was undertaken in the 2013 discussion. This was the exhibit that was used at the time for the Pinal Regional Significant Routes for Safety and Mobility. Some of these designations, as they are around us and through our jurisdiction, will be similar. Some will be changed. We're going to be making sure that we make sure that wherever those meet up, that the level of service or the width of the right-of-way will be commensurate, if that's a good word. Just some of the graphics, text conveying the roadways, the definition of freeways through local street. I'll do a quick cover on that as far as what the level of service and widths are. This is the main map that I will come back to. If you've seen this before or not, it's on our website. It's really easy to access. But basically, this is kind of a color code thing that's saying these are the level of roads and how busy they'll be, whether it's going to be 6 lanes or 4 lanes or 2 and things of that nature. So we'll be coming back to that here in a little bit. Just wanted to also show some of the mapping or exhibits of our adjacent jurisdictions, the county itself. This is directly from their transportation planning viewers, so anybody can go online, highlight or tick on the certain levels. They'll pop up here and you can kind of see in conjunction what we're kind of working with here. And like I said, we're going to be going back and checking and making sure that these line up with the designations that we have and or if we need to revisit those. And that can be talked about a little bit this evening too with some of the personnel that we have here. Just thought I'd put this in. This was in the newspaper in August 31st about ADOT talking about the next phase of the plan for the North-South Freeway, which is basically here all the way up to Apache Junction here. And just kind of calling out an example here that if you went to the assessor's GIS mapping and stuff, you can see some of the right-of-way in the past that's actually been acquired that hopefully will be a portion of this. This is actually pretty close to iPass south of Coolidge here. So it's kind of more of a fun representation here to see that some of the long-range planning that you think isn't going on is actually continually going. So someday there'll be a freeway out there, hopefully. Just calling out the regional significant routes here. Once again, we're going to be making sure that wherever we're lining up with their designations are the same. Just a reference of showing Eloy, the similar document in their general plan here. And the same thing for our neighbors to the north, being Florence. And I was having a little trouble chasing down something from Casa Grande, so I just cheated and used the 2017 Pinal County regional map to basically show that they're over here, and once again, that we all talk to each other. So that'll be part of the processes that we'll be doing. Also, we had recently talked a little bit about the rail for heavy rail, but also passenger rail. Oops, what did I do here? There we go. That hopefully will someday be from, doesn't work, all the way up from Phoenix, making its way south to Tucson, and one of the routes here obviously would come right through Coolidge. So interestingly enough, it could be the designated travel path from there back and forth. It's thought that sometime there might be an Amtrak station here, but that's way off in the future, and it's even kind of unsure. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
We've been in contact with Amtrak about them putting a station, so Coolidge has been selected
Yeah.
through the process to
Oh,
have
okay,
a stop. We used to have one years ago, and so we had a station here. So we've kept it open as far as where we haven't selected a spot to locate it, but we're along the rail, and then tie it into our regional transit facility. So our circulator could actually take people from transit here, or they get off the Amtrak and they can go to Florence on the CART system, or drive around locally here, or get on the circulator eventually and get down to Nicola through that circulator and that area down there with Procter and Gamble and the Hannah Road area where we have all the prisons there. So it's a good tie-in, and I know the mayor's talked to Amtrak, and we've been in contact with them. So we'll see where it gets funded, where it goes. We'd certainly love to have one stop here. Just want to add that. So there are discussions that are ongoing with that. Anyway, just wanted to add that for your information.
And once again, just kind of visiting with the existing document, lots of tables here, things to be read here, very interesting stuff, a little too detailed to go into here, but sharing it overall. Called out roadway widths, which is basically the width, the number of travel lanes. I'll spend a little bit of time on that in just a moment. And then moving into other modes of transportation, like transit, most notably for us, the Cotton Express. Other modes of transportation, bicycle, pedestrians, designated routes within the downtown, and basically just kind of finishing it up there. So I'll come back and just do some little bit of overall stuff using the existing map that we have here. Kind of like last time, the general plan, Arizona statute requires that we update it every 10 years. It is the city's policy document. It interfaces with zoning and our building codes and other city and municipal code sections. The categories are land use, circulation tonight, open space will be in October, and then subsequent months afterwards will be growth areas, environment, water resources, and the cost of development. The City Council approved the participation plan that we're undertaking now in July of 2023, and that was 6 months to cover all these topics, which will lead to a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Board here of March of 2024 to consider its approval, passing forward to the City Council, which would be considered on June of 2024, and if everything goes well, hopefully to be put in front of the voters in November of 2024. So notices and monthly updates with commentary sheets have been sent out. State, county, regional government, private, nonprofit entities. Actually, 3 rounds from our initial announcement last month, and then this month, tomorrow I'll start compiling our discussion here. 200 plus emails to persons in the private sector, engineers, architects, landowners, emails to our department heads to share posters, flyers distributed on bulletins and in public areas around the entire area of Coolidge. So basically, what is the circulation element? Let's just cover it here pretty quick. The prior plan for 2025 was based upon, when it was done in 2013, the prior year, a City of Coolidge Comprehensive Transportation Feasibility Study had been identified. And the objectives, which are essentially now our circulation element, are one, to identify, establish multimodal transportation plans as a community vision for transportation investment. The second goal, as in 2013, as is now, is to identify the urban processes of population growth, which are expected to grow extensively even as far as 2040 and probably beyond. Households and employment centers dictate two of our major locations between places of trip generation, in addition to such locations as schools and retail and so forth. There's the need to continue identifying critical transportation needs by location to create timely and phased connection, construction, and maintenance. Balance Coolidge needs working with the regional Pinal County mobility routes, and identifying key parts of the circulation element, which are basically the roadways, the transit, bicycle, and pedestrians. So I have a few other notes here, but in the interest, since we've got some folks here available to also add some additional commentary, basically the roadways that we got, or that we have, very similar throughout Pinal and even up in Maricopa, if I can find it here, this is the cross-section. At the highest level, you have basically a definition of a freeway, and that can be about 300 feet wide. And that's something that the north-south freeway will be someday. However, prior to that, there'll probably be a designated parkway, which could be about 150, maybe 180 feet wide. If anybody's ever been out to the West Valley when the 303 was a parkway before it became a freeway, that's kind of an example of what that could be. But we're talking many, many decades in the works for that. Moving down, we have a designation for basically what's a major arterial, or about 130 feet wide. That's 6 lanes, 3 going, 3 coming back, common turn lane. Take a step down to a minor arterial, a little bit thinner, 110 feet, 2 lanes going, 2 lanes coming back, common turn lane, so just a little bit thinner. And then we get down to some different collector roads that can be anywhere from 50 to 90 feet wide. And then, of course, our local streets with varying widths of right-of-way, depending on what the type of use is out there and stuff. So let's see here. Just wanted to identify our bicycle pedestrian. It's to encourage increased bicycle access where possible through 4 means. 1, create multi-use paths, utilize adjacent canal locations, improve ADA accessibility, and other interconnected networks. And basically, you can see that here. This is what was designated 10 years ago, and it is a pretty good designation, so we'll probably be working with this or setting to see if we need to add anything to it. And basically what this was is to allow interconnectivity, but also transitions within different parts of it. It's like getting from Cabot to other parts of town, or from the central business district out to other residential areas, or in between individual residential areas here, and having other programs that basically will enhance, widen, and provide maintenance for those sidewalks. And I know darn well that Ben's got some stuff you can talk about there too, when he gets a chance. So outside of that,
Bill, we also have the trail system that the county's
Yes.
working on. It's out
Yes.
by the airport.
yes,
It actually follows the CAP canal, so the county has a designated trails expert person that works on that, and they've been working with our Parks and Rec staff to identify that trail that goes next to the CAP, right by the airport. So that's already been discussed and approved, and I know they're putting that through. They have money towards it, I think. We've identified a parking area for people that want to get on the trail. As you're going out towards Cactus Forest, past the airport entrance, you go over the CAP, and there's a large area there where people can park. We'll develop that in the future, and that'll give people access to that trail. That'll be nice. So as Phil said, the interesting thing when we look at developments is to tie in the open spaces and the trails together, so they kind of work in conjunction with each other, especially like out in Heartland. A lot of people walk out there, and you see a lot of people doing that. So when these others are built next to it, you want to make sure they tie in together, the trail system. So, and then we have Jason from the MPO, and we have our director, Mr. Navarro here. So, Phil, do you want to start with Jason, or how do you want to?
either or. whoever
I
would
know
like to go first.
he's put together some speaking points. You want to start? Because Jason will probably cover it larger.
Yeah.
And then,
Can I ask a question first, before they start?
Yeah.
What is our role here? What are we here to do tonight?
listen, and then if you have questions about the process or comments to make about, the circulation of the city, then that'll be your role to do that. And so you're an important component of it, just like the city council will be. You're a recommending body, so you're looking at this, and eventually it'll come to you for approval. So you're part of the process of getting input from the public.
So comments that we make will be written down someplace and taken into account?
Yes,
recorded.
yes, absolutely.
We're not just sitting here, we're actually can make comments and someone will look at those.
Well, it'll be on the public record for the recording too.
Yes. Yeah, everybody's comments are important. And what we'll do is consider all of them and see how they fit in, yes,
Got the television channel fixed in, so if you catch it at the right time, you can watch what we talked about
correct, Vice Chair, yes,
to refresh for next time.
absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people watch the cable system. When I was on the city council, I was pleasantly surprised how many people watch it, because they'd comment on it and say, I saw you on TV, and I said, how come you don't go to the meeting? Well, got you there. We don't, I have my family and stuff I got to worry about. So if I need to comment, I will. And I said, oh, that's good. So people do watch it. So they'll be watching on TV. So do you want to have Jason Jason, do you want to get up and talk about, do you have a presentation? No.
No, it's, yeah, whatever you need me to do, yeah.
You said you had some speaking points you put together just on the Prop 400 in case.
I can give some update on.
Yeah, that would be because I know Commissioner Leonard wanted to know about Prop 400 and how it ties into our area, even though that's a Maricopa County prop to expand roadways. But we met before, and there is an impact to our system here that if that doesn't get approved. So you want to go to the mic, please? Yes. Why don't pull the mic up a little bit so you can speak right into it, because sometimes it doesn't pick you up.
So, I'll also take any questions that you might have.
Is that mic on?
So please state your name and for the camera.
Sure, my name is Jason Botchin. I am with Suncor or MPO. We are a federal mandated organization. We provide transportation planning services to our member agencies, which includes Coolidge. We also manage some federal dollars for transportation. So as far as Prop 400 goes, that's the tax for Maricopa County. And while the tax that is collected can only be spent in Maricopa County, the issue is that like last year, that tax generated about $650 million. And where the issue would be is if that tax is not extended, there's a lot of other revenue sources in the state that are shared by some of the rural counties, including Pinal. And so that would kind of force Maricopa to start looking at some of those other revenue sources. And the funding that we do get that we can spend in Pinal County could be reduced. And that would certainly cause some issues to keep up with expansion and pavement preservation and things like that. So my understanding, Maricopa County is the only county in the state that needs to get state legislature approval to put something on the ballot, a tax. I believe the governor signed that, State Bill 1152, July 31st. The current tax for Maricopa sunsets December 31st of 2025. My understanding is they're looking at November of 2024 to put that back on the ballot. So again, the issue is, although those funding sources that are shared with the other counties and areas of the state, that could be reduced. Those pots of monies will be reduced, and that funding will be much harder to get, even more so than it is today.
I asked a question about what happened to the money that was collected in Pinal County for our transportation. There was a 300 million or something like that was collected. It's a pretty large number, and stopped us from spending it.
Vice Chair, are you talking about the RTAC money for the North-South Freeway and all the other things that
That's
maybe?
the Pinal Regional Transportation Authority. And so I've been a little while since I've worked on that, but that tax went into effect in 2018. They started collecting that tax, I believe, April 1st of 2018. A lawsuit was brought forth pretty quickly after that, a few months. The issue is that the state allowed the county to continue to collect that tax.
Yes.
It was about $88 million that's been collected so far. The Arizona Department of Revenue has that money. Their plan was to refund it to taxpayers. The issue is that it's not citizens. It would go back to the businesses that collected it. And I don't know that the businesses would then be able to figure out, especially with cash payments and things like.
Especially since it was charged to everybody that was from out of state, in-state, traveling through, no matter what, everybody paid the tax. You
Yeah.
can't refund it to the people that paid it.
You're absolutely correct. That would simply go back to the businesses. I know that the folks on the PRT Executive Board have been working with the Arizona Department of Revenue to try to say, hey, give the money to Pinal County. We'll split it up amongst the incorporated towns and cities and let them use that for transportation dollars. But that's still a decision that the state has to make. And I'm not exactly sure at this point the money's sitting in escrow,
Yeah.
and they're still working on it to try to
That's
get it
what
back.
I thought, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to check on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's collecting money, it's collecting interest right
Yes.
now. So the discussion I heard the last time was they're still looking at maybe Department of Revenue giving that money to the RTA or the entity that's collecting the money, and then allowing them to figure out the best solution, which would probably be to give it to the entities, the cities and the county, and put it in the roadways that the people who pay the tax use. I mean, that would make the most sense, because that way everybody uses those roads and uses the transportation funds. But whether that comes to pass, I know that's what they're working on right now.
Yeah.
So that's a discussion. Does that help answer? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that reason I asked that is if we knew what an answer was gonna be, it would help this part of this
Oh, sure.
a bunch.
I agree with you. Yep. So, and we've been fortunate through the MPO. Coolidge has been very fortunate in getting quite a bit of funds to help us with roadways, and Ben will probably touch on that. Our Public Works Director, Ben Navarro, he's done more for roads that I've seen since I was on the city council. So and that used to be the item that everybody brings up. You're at church or you're somewhere, when are you going to fix my road? So now we're a lot of headway in that area with some of the things that are happening. So do you have any other, Jason, do you have any other comments you would like to make? And
Not on the Prop 400 extension. I know that we talked, you had a slide up there about the rail.
yes,
And so there was that initial study where that map came from was completed in 2015 by ADOT. They did essentially a feasibility study, what would it look like to get rail from Phoenix down. They also did a Tier 1 environmental impact statement, looking at all the environmental issues. And so that yellow line is the preferred corridor that came out of that study, and the environmental impact statement, excuse me. There hasn't been a lot of work done since that study, but the state legislature for the FY24 budget allocated $3.5 million to ADOT to continue and further the planning effort on that. I know that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act had, I think, $66 billion. Some of that was earmarked for the Amtrak project, and as Gilbert said, Coolidge is getting a station here or a stop whenever that's constructed. But 3.5 million, while it sounds like a lot of money, when you're planning a route this long, they're going to need some additional funding. No funding has been identified for designing the rail system or construction. I don't know if you have any questions on that, or.
I don't, but I know that Ken does.
I have a couple. The map that we had, this map that we had up on the screen?
yes. That one?
Yes. How are the principal arterials and minor arterials determined to put on that map? Who determined that?
If this is for Coolidge, I'm not certain. I would.
Yeah, it was through our planning process the last time, and Rick was actually the planning director, and they went through, him and Tim put together all the drawings, but it also ties into the county's map and what they've adopted. And so it's a combination of us looking at what the county's adopted and what the plans are for moving the population back and forth, where it makes the most sense to put them on. And they were placed on the map for consideration of the public, and the voters voted upon it, adopted it.
Yes.
So this is the adopted part of the, you know, it can be changed, but it's so far, you know, not everything will be, you know, 6 lanes across right now. It may start as a 2 lanes and then it'll expand, but we will, when new development comes up, we'll ask for enough right of way to cover whatever's in front of that, you know, so if there's a arterial or whatever width is required, we will ask for that as it develops. And
Director Lopez, I've been looking at this, and it appears to me that the east-west arterials, we have the Parkway at 287, and we have another item at McCarthy that is going to be a principal arterial at some time. But there's literally 5 miles between the two arterials, or the two major roads going west, east and west, but there is 3 of them within 3 or 4 miles, I guess 4 miles, going north and south. It just seems like Coolidge Avenue should be something more developed or more planning developed. It may not be a 6-lane road down Coolidge Avenue, but there certainly should be a wider road or more developed road, especially on the east side. I know Mr. Navarro is very busily tearing down road and building new road on the west side of Coolidge, from Coolidge Avenue to, or from Arizona Boulevard out to Skousen, or there close to it. But there's nothing going on the east side, and the east side looks bad, very bad. So I'm wondering, do we have a plan for that? Is there anything done? And maybe I should wait till Carl
Yeah.
stands up, but
Mr. Navarro can answer that. We've got, I think, $5 million for Coolidge improvements, and Mr. Navarro can share that good news with you.
So good evening, I'm Ben Navarro, I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Coolidge. We actually do have a plan for the east side of Coolidge Avenue. We received $5.3 million of state shared revenue, and we are in the works currently getting engineering and design to do Christensen Road to Clemens Road to widen up the intersections, widen up the roadway, and put down a heavy asphalt paving to actually prep for the north-south freeway and be prepared for that. And so actually Mr. Lopez and Mr. Miller and of course our Mayor Thompson were quite instrumental in getting that funding and allowing me to have the funds to do this. And so I'm actually hoping to have 30% plans later this month for that designed roadway, and we are looking to actually start construction somewhere around February, March of next year.
is that going to be covering the area from the railroad tracks to Christensen Road? Or are we not going to touch that area yet?
We're not going to touch that area yet. We're going to be going through and we're going to be doing some pavement preservation in that area. This heavy section that we're doing, I'm looking to get some of the worst parts and open up these intersections that are choked down. Anybody who's ever gone north and south on Attaway Road and Coolidge Avenue and have made that turn know how tight it is. And so we're having to deal with several other entities with skid and widening up the intersections. So I wanted to put that big block of money to get those intersections widened up and get everything prepped, because that's where a lot of our money is going to be sucked up, is getting these intersections. Because Clemens, north and south, is really narrow. Attaway is really narrow. Christensen's actually pretty good, but I wanted to get these main intersections taken care of while we have this opportunity now. Doing the small section between Christensen and the railroad tracks presents some other obstacles dealing with the railroad, but it's nothing considered compared to the other intersections that we're looking to do.
And you're going from Christensen how far to the east?
We're going from Christensen to Clemens Road.
To
And so
Clemens?
we'll go just east of the Clemens intersection, and that's where we're stopping.
Okay.
Any other questions?
There's no reason to do an arterial anywhere in that 5-mile stretch between the road at, well, actually from 287 down to McCartney. There's a 5-mile section there that's won't have any major roadway. Is that going to be an issue?
Currently, no. I use this map as a guideline from our general plan, and that's what I use this map for. When we look to see how we're going to expand it. This is all a plan. Nothing is set in stone on this, but this is what we use as a guideline. So when we're lining up with the other surrounding, it also depends on development that's coming in of where we flow with our roadways and what we do. We do use developers to help expand our roads, to help cut costs for the citizens and everyone else. But you have to have some kind of plan laid out to what we're going to do to move to meet up with our fellow neighbors' roads, to make everything flow properly.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, I'm looking at three arterials going north and south that are out connecting into 79 directly. Actually, there's five of them. Why are we something, is that something the county wants to do on what would be on the right side of this map? Why do we have so many principal arterials in that area? I'm sorry, go back to the picture you're at,
Put it
please.
back. Put it back. Put it back, yeah.
Yeah,
See, on this side, there is,
Yeah, if I may, Commissioner Bolin, that's a lot of state land out there, and we don't anticipate any of that will be, in probably this next 10 years, that won't happen. I would think the biggest, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of the largest transportation corridors will be from I-10 east and west, connecting eventually to the north-south freeway and the boulevard, and then anything past the airport, I think will be way in the future if the state ever privatizes any of that state land. But I think the county had some of that designated before. So we've left it in the event that happens, we have it on the plan. And one thing is, if you have it on the plan and there's some funding that comes out that can tie in the 79 back into the rest of the system, that may be the opportunity to do that.
And
What do you think,
Mr.
Ben?
Lopez is absolutely right. There's a lot of things that we plan out in advance that it's a possibility. As long as you have these on the plan, if anything ever did come to fruition, that's how we have the ability to get grants, and we say that we had this on the plan. The odds of anything being developed past the airport in the next 10 years are very, very slim. Even like you can see this McCartney arterial going through tying in, there is a wide chunk that there's a lot of development that would have to come in to actually connect this all the way through, even just to connect it into town. That's dirt roads and farm fields and everything. And so this is a plan. So if it does develop, we can say we've had a plan in place and these were options, and you can use these documents to go back and say we've had this plan for X amount of years, and this is how we get some of our grant funding.
so then Ben, to Commissioner Boland's point, wouldn't it make sense then to designate Coolidge Avenue as a principal arterial?
So we only have so much right of way too. So with these designations comes the widths that you have. The right of way that we have on Coolidge Avenue, we can't make it any wider without actually taking somebody's property. And so we've already have as much right of way as we can get with Coolidge Avenue. And so we'll have to stay within those bounds.
Director Navarro, it shows here to me that Arizona Boulevard, Highway 87 will be a major arterial coming right through the center of town. I don't believe you have the right-of-way to build a 6-lane road down Arizona Boulevard, to my knowledge.
We do not, and also Arizona Boulevard is not our right of way. That is state right of way.
I know that.
So we look at it and we drive on it, but we have no rights to it. That's about what's going on with the boulevard.
So why do we have it marked in red on our maps that we hope that's going to be a 6-lane road? Does the state of Arizona think it's going to be? As a property owner on Arizona Boulevard, I'm concerned about my property lines.
So I didn't make the map. Whoever made the map, that's how they designated it. There's no way they're going to widen that thing up. They, like you say, as a property owner, they would have to take your property and everybody else's on the boulevard to widen that out to a 6-lane road. Now, they wouldn't just take it; they would try to buy it. I guess if it came to it, then that's a whole nother ball of wax if they were looking to expand that. But honestly, I think that's just a mistake in the map.
So that red line wasn't something done by the state of Arizona telling us that it's going to down the road?
I am going to assume it was not, but like I say, I wasn't a part of it 10 years ago.
10 years ago, okay.
Yeah,
I
and a
think
lot,
that's a major question to me. Excuse me, go ahead.
Mr. Boland, I was just going to say that, typically how that works is they do traffic counts, they do modeling, and so if that came from the state, what they're saying is, saying by 2050 to maintain a high level of service, then that road should be a principal arterial. Not necessarily saying that it will be, but again, to kind of maintain that level of service, to keep traffic moving, that is the recommendation.
and also I know Ben, his team put out traffic count equipment on different parts of the city, right, Ben? I think we have that to see what travels down what roads, and it's not, and then the state actually counts the cars on the state highways. We have access to those numbers, so when you look at the boulevard, and if it's getting very congested, then we'll look at Ben will look at what flows next to it that's parallel to move traffic, because right now we have a lot of, just to give you an example, Ben, we have a lot of people coming up 87 and then cutting across Bartlett and then going up to go around the core of the city, right? So I know you've been working really hard to get that road in shape because they wore it out. So things like that then triggers us, Ben's team, to look engineering-wise at where do we move that traffic? Do we keep it there? Do we go further down Bartlett and go up? What's the most efficient way to get that traffic through that doesn't want to go through the city? And so it's kind of a plan that's in motion based on traffic counts. And so we look at that, and we use traffic counts for economic development also. So the businesses, we met with some today, they want to know what the counts are on the boulevard and what the counts are in different areas. That helps the businesses decide where to locate. So it's important. So,
I mean,
good question.
I'm looking at Casa Grande's traffic counts on Florence Boulevard, which are probably 4 or 5 times what Arizona Boulevards are in Coolidge.
Yes.
Just simply because we're talking about a lot more people, and they're using the same size road that we're using in Coolidge, that they're using over there.
Yep.
So I don't know whether, this is realistic. I just look at the fact that you're telling us on the 10-year plan that this could possibly become a 6-lane road, which would negatively affect every business on Arizona Boulevard. If somebody suddenly, the state of Arizona suddenly said, we're going to make this 6 lanes road. Of course, I guess they'll do Florence Boulevard before that, and that'll affect even more people.
Yeah, and I don't see that happening because right now, when we have a business that is fronts on the boulevard, they don't force them to, especially if it's an existing business, they'll work with what's there. They won't make them tear out all the sidewalks and redo everything. They'll try to work with an existing business that wants to, say, change, like the ice cream place that's over there on the corner of, that's what it's going to be, the corner of Arizona Boulevard and Coolidge Avenue. It'd be the southwest corner. We're working on that. We've been in contact with ADOT, and they're requiring some minor things, but they're working with them on that. The same thing, we're working with them on any entrances to the. There's some restaurants along. What's the one? Roberto's that was approved, and so they may, on something like that, they may require widening of the entryway, but they're not requiring much else. There's no ADA changes or anything. That I was talking to some of the ADOT people, so ADOT's aware of what it would cost to do something like that, and so they'll work with the city. Ben, and Ben's in contact with him quite a bit, and he knows all the people in Tucson that work in ADOT, and to get right-of-way permits and do all the things they, because we work with ADOT on maintaining the boulevard, right, Ben, the sidewalks and everything.
We have an agreement with ADOT with maintaining the boulevard, so we do maintenance on sidewalks and actually the median. So we do not own it, but we do maintain that, and it's an agreement that we've had in place for, I think, 40 or 50 years. We've had this agreement in place. And just to kind of touch on this map too, it's also what Gilbert and his crew uses to guide business when they come in. You can see that these are the major roadways that are planned out, and so how Casa Grande has their Florence Boulevard, and they have their businesses on there. This is what they use to help guide businesses. Of this is what's planned in the future. This is what the intentions are of going, so you can help guide that. And maybe we'll be lucky enough that we won't be as congested as Casa Grande is when you're trying to get from one place to the other down the boulevard, and it is just absolutely getting hammered with traffic. But Casa Grande's count right now is what, 55, 60,000?
Oh, yeah, it's way high. They're trying to figure out how to deal with
I think the
that.
latest CAG numbers are somewhere just below 18,000 for Coolidge. So we'd have quite a bit of growing to do before Arizona Boulevard would even see anything like that kind of traffic.
Are we giving a false impression to businesses coming in that this Arizona Boulevard is going to be a 6-lane road someday?
No, I don't believe so. We explained it's a plan, and it's all based on funding and need and potential in the traffic counts. So we don't say this is going to happen. We say this is a plan that we looked at, and it was adopted by the voters. I mean, they may decide take that out and maybe put arterials on the sides, on some of the other, widen Skousen, but some of those, as development comes in, they talk about where to put those alignments. And some want it there, some do not. It affects the plan. And, so it's what it is, it's a plan. So, yeah, I don't, we always preface it with saying this is a general plan, but we look at hard zoning. This is what you're required to do on a roadway.
We've approved several subdivisions that are coming, one out on Martin Road. Who is going to develop that road? Who's going to pay for that road to be developed to carry the increase in traffic when they build that subdivision we approved on the south side of Martin Road? Where's that money coming from? Somebody?
Yeah, I mean, the developer's responsible for the portion that's adjacent to the road that they impact. You're talking about, say, like the houses that are there on the south side of, so anything that's, I mean, it's even in Phoenix and Glendale and everywhere, you'll have wide areas, but then you'll go to an older area that was there already existing, where then the city has to locate some funding in the future to widen that road. So it would be probably prefaced more on the city eventually, or grants or something like that, because unless they tear the houses down and some developer goes in there, that's the.
Well, I've watched them installing large water lines along Vakayan Road to the new water tanks that are there, and they're putting them under what will be the road if it ever is widened for the subdivision that we have out there that is trying to be developed. They're right next to the road, so they're gonna be under a roadway, it appears. And I didn't know, why are we allowing them to give a permit to be able to put a 2-foot water line or whatever it is, right next to the roadbed, or maybe it'll be under the roadbed if we ever widen Vakayan out to Skousen, which it needs to be done at some point.
And Ben, if you want to just touch on that real quick.
So there's only so much easement that the city has to allow these lines to be run. So that's why we actually have inspectors go out there. I mean, we have the lines run, we give them permits to run the line. We try to get everything out of the roadway as much as we can. So if there is an incident, because I mean, you saw there was a break on the 60, maybe 6-8 months ago, and it actually just tore it up. It was a big deal. But there's only so much room that we can work with. And so we keep these lines in our easement, we push them out as far as we can, and we make sure that they're installed correctly. And that's what we can do. Now, nothing is foolproof. Failures do happen, but that's why we have the conditions that we do, so that we make sure the line's buried deep enough and it's installed properly. So these roadways do go over it. Like I say, if we can, we push it out as far as we can, and we try to keep it out of the failure. We can only hope that it's minor and that we can get to it and we can solve it before it becomes something huge, but sometimes you can't count on that.
Is it common that have water lines like that under a roadway? Is that common I don't know anything about construction.
It's pretty common, actually, to have large lines like that cross or run parallel with the roadways. It's common. Coolidge has been around been a city since 1945, so.
Twenty-five.
Coolidge has been
but okay.
around a long time, and so there's things going on. There's places where there's irrigation lines that are run completely under a house foundation, and that's because the irrigation was there before the house, and it runs straight through the property. So there's things like that happen, and there's lines that have been installed, and building goes on as they're improved. Water lines are moved, they're shifted, Whenever you have to run a new line, you push everything out as far as you can to get it out of the way, because if there is a failure in any of these lines, then you don't want it in the middle of the road, you want it on the side. So we do everything we can when we have any kind of new build, new construction, to push it out as far as we can, but sometimes it can't be avoided.
Okay.
And I know Ben works real closely, one of our partners, APS, is here, represented. And I know Ben works real closely with APS on where they're going to locate their lines and if they move any for future development. That's an ongoing process, so.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
So do they open the public hearing?
I do apologize to you guys. We did go a little bit longer according to our agenda. But I do at this time want to open it up to the public. Anybody wants to come to the podium to comment?
Pardon me, I'm getting over pneumonia, so, but don't cough. But my name's Douglas Reber, and I have some property in the area. And I'm really got a question as to if anybody can address the north-south proposed freeway, which is, kind of penciled in. But where's the funding going to come from that? What'll be the source of funding, and what are the triggers that we watch for it in terms to get any kind of a timing on that?
Okay. We'll have Jason with the MPO, but as far as I know, there's no identified funding at this time. But
Right.
there are, years ago when I was on the council, the legislature adopted some potential alternatives, I think, Jason, including potential toll roads. But that was just something that they allowed. But I know recently there was legislation that was to make sure that you couldn't turn an existing roadway into a toll. It would be only on brand new construction where everybody was on board. So I don't know, Jason, you want to just, you please?
Please.
So I can pick you up on the recording.
So currently, Mr. Lopez is correct. There is no funding for design or construction identified. All of the funding that they had was part of the Pinal Regional Transportation Authority that the Arizona State Supreme Court struck down. There's been a Tier 1 environmental impact study done. So if you've been on the, like Pinal County has a viewer that shows the 1,500-foot wide corridor. Well, that is set. The corridor is the corridor. What they're doing now is a Tier 2 environmental impact study, which will take a 400-foot wide right-of-way footprint somewhere in the 1,500-foot wide corridor that has been defined. There is some funding for that. There's been a Tier 2, and that goes from Arizona Farms Road north up to US 60. That is currently underway. There'll actually be a public meeting. There was one last night in Casa Grande. There's one tomorrow in Apache Junction. Now, they're still, I think they said last night, they're about 3 years away. They're in the data collection process. The state legislature, I believe it was $12.5 million that they gave to complete that study. ADOT is currently looking to bring on a consultant to do segment 2, which is Arizona Farms Road south to the I-10. But there is no funding for design or construction identified at this time. But the funding for the study came from the state legislature.
Thank you. That answer your question, sir? Please.
Where will the source of funding, it doesn't exist yet, but will it be a special tax? Will it be Pinal County, state?
I think we're here and it's yet to be defined.
Yeah, and it'll be a combination probably of different things as they go through. The county may have a portion of it. They may designate part of it as a toll. It won't be a traditional toll. It may be just the surrounding property owners, because there are about 5 or 6 variations of different types of toll road mechanisms around the country. So, it may take on those type of things too in sections of it. You see it in Colorado and other places like that.
What they're actually saying is, we probably won't be here when it happens. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would say it's a long way off. It would be a combination of, if the PRTA, they're planning that, so the Pinal Regional Transportation Authority is planning on trying to get that tax back to the voters. And I believe they're looking at doing that in 2025. But it would be a combination of that, local funding, state funding, and I can tell you the state of Arizona would go after some grants, just like they've done for the I-10 widening through Pinal County, going after build and raise grants. But again, that's still yet to be determined.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
So we'll probably see widening of 87 south, and then we're very fortunate, there's a real, but that intersection was 30 million over on I-10 at 87. That, yeah, so it's wide enough, you've been on it, it's wide enough to handle all the traffic from Procter and Gamble and Nikola and some of the others we anticipate. And working with ADOT to put in the traffic signals. They're already there on Hannah and on Hauser Road, the traffic signals are up. I don't believe they're energized yet.
Yes, they are.
Are they good? Because I talked to Representative Martinez and she said, that's easy, I just have to the ADOT director and get them on. And I said, okay, good, because there's a lot of traffic on there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's awesome. I'm glad she sent that and that got done. So we'll thank her for that as soon as we get a chance.
Awesome.
Thank you. So
Anybody else? All right. Finished late, ended early. Love it.
No, we're not done yet.
needed.
I got a couple of things.
Sure.
We were talking about Coolidge Avenue and how the traffic needs, it's a main corridor through the city. We've got Clemens Road and we got, let's see, Skousen and Clemens. And those roads are constantly, if you've done a traffic study, you'd probably find that most of the time, 50% of the traffic that would go through Coolidge is going down those two roads. And so those roads we need to look at on this to make them, bring them more up to date with our classifications, because at the time this was done, they weren't classified as main arterial roads, and they are now. And Skousen's gonna become more, because we're doing some work on it tonight. There's gonna be more coming. We've got homes that's gonna be going in out there. And so we got a lot of work to do on Skousen. We got work to do on Clemens. We got
Yes, that's
Martin
correct.
Road.
Yep.
Now, I don't know about Bartlett, because I can't see it from my house, but I can see Martin Road from my house, and I can tell you, there is more traffic on Martin Road. You wouldn't believe it. I imagine you would believe it because you see it. And that's a main arterial artery for people trying to go around Coolidge. They save 10 minutes.
Yeah, and we've got Vice Chair, we've got Brittlebush, which is the big solar facility there. You know, SRP was putting in part of the paving on Randolph. That was an agreement, separate agreement they did, but what we did is relocated that. And I think we talked about this before. We had, they're required to do some of the roads around there. So what we said is, you'll do Bartlett up on top of the north side and instead of Randolph. So that way we get more roadway there where they'll use it as they come down there, using Bartlett and turning up near where Neely's and some of the Goree's houses are, the farmhouses in the park, our big Kenilworth Park. They run down that road and then turn right and go towards Florence.
That's
So,
another thing. We
yeah.
need to look at where the stop signs are, because we've got stop signs in the wrong places.
Yeah,
People don't even stop because they're in the wrong places.
we'll certainly, that's part of the ongoing review of our roadway system that Ben does and his team look at.
Bartlett, they're going straight through, and there's probably a third of the traffic coming from the south
Right.
that there is coming from the north. I mean, Stinger goes out there and goes down to work.
Right. Yes, those are great comments. Absolutely.
And so we need to look at reversing those stop signs and making that, but then you got everybody going 50, 60 miles an hour through that guy's property right down this road there where there's a 35 mile an hour zone.
Yeah. And those are ongoing realities of what Ben has to work with and face on the roadways versus,
know what he
you know,
has to
and yeah, so this is a projection into the future along with taking that into account. And so it's a combination of both. So those are good questions, comments to take in.
Now, do you want them written up? You want me
No,
to?
we've got them, Phil's,
Oh.
we've got them on tape. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a bunch more. I won't go into it tonight because he's gonna stop me in a minute.
Oh. Yeah, and also, well, and Jason, I don't know if, just to update everybody, the 87 in Skousen, I think the light is in design, correct? And Ben knows it. Okay, so that's coming forward. I know we get a lot of comments on that.
All right.
Just wanted to
thank
bring that
you
up. Ben's got the
very
latest.
much.
Okay, that sounds good. That's all we have on this side.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you guys very much for all your help and your comments. Both Jason and Ben, thank you guys for coming tonight. We'll carry on, right?
Yes.
All right, item B on our agenda tonight. Cool PZ 230733, conditional use permit request by Franklin Architects on behalf of Brad Jensen and the Calvary Chapel Church of Coolidge for
Excuse me
approximately.
just a second. Mr. Navarro, can you hold on for just a minute? I will have something about this one I'd like to talk to you about. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you want to take a couple minute break and then start on the, or do you need?
I want to talk to him about the one we're talking about, the conditional use permit.
Oh, with Mr. Navarro?
I want him here to ask him some questions.
Okay, I didn't, okay,
That's fine, Gilbert?
yes.
Okay, we'll continue. Let me start over. Cool PZ 230733, conditional use permit request by Franklin Architects on behalf of Brad Jensen and the Calvary Chapel Church of Coolidge for approximately 5,000 square foot church building as situated in the agricultural zoning district and located 2/3 of a mile west of intersection of Skousen Road and Vaca Inn. Parcel number 209190007J. Director Lopez, please.
Yes, Chair Commissioners, this is a request for a conditional use permit for a church. If you go, it's on Vaca Inn between Skousen and McCrae, out in the area where you see there's some, like a rectangular piece of land with some development out there. There's a large piece in the front. Churches are allowed in the ag zoning except they're with conditional use permit. So this is that process. And so, Phil, do you have anything?
Basically, the graphics are self-explanatory, just to call out site looking southwest from Vikey and southeast. As you can see, it's a general dirt lot with some acreages in the background. This was the site plan that was provided. 11 by 17s are in each of your packets, zoomed in on a little bit. Basic quick background here. Here's Vikey. You can see the parking lot, the proposed building with its main gathering area, several classrooms, and elevations. So I'll back up to the site plan here, and I'll let a conversation occur between the commission and our
Yeah, the
public works
conditional
director.
use permits, to allow the use, and then the site
Yes.
plan will follow if you approve the conditional
Yes.
use. Okay?
Very
So
good.
I see Ben is up at the dais.
Ken, you had some questions for Mr. Navarro?
Mr. Navarro, I'm concerned about the traffic count adding to that. That is a residential area. There's about 4 or 5 houses that are in that just to the east of where this church is going to be located. That road is not in the best of condition.
Correct.
I would say, would be an honest statement. Is that city road at this time?
Yes.
It does belong to the city. Is there any money or funding available to do, what do you call, maintenance on or
So we have money to maintenance roads where we have issues like this. The church, if built, we try to keep all our roads up as best we can. That piece of Vakian, I actually do drive it, so I know which piece of road that you're talking about. We'll patch and maintain. They'll come in, they'll build their section, they have their half-road improvement. Unless something else is coming in, I mean, it will have a higher traffic count due to the church that's coming in. As the traffic increases on it, and if this actually does go forward and getting built, we'll make sure that the road is safe. We'll fix any issues that we have. Eventually, this road is going to be reconstructed. That's what it needs. It needs to be reconstructed. It is eventual that we will do it. You have to do it. I mean, if you're asking me about that piece of road, you've driven down it too, so you know what I'm talking about.
Only once or twice.
Only once or twice, so
Okay.
I actually live on Bucky. I know it well. So no, it will have to be reconstructed. We don't have it in our CIP. If this does go forward, this may be a piece of road that we look at to put in our CIP next year.
Yeah, I mean, currently, the traffic count on the road is relatively small
On
compared
that
to,
section, yes.
compared
On
to
the
Skousen.
other side of Skousen, it's quite high. I think
Yes.
it's around 6,500 cars a day
Yeah.
is what's on. I think that piece of Vakian is the busiest road in Coolidge proper.
I think you're right, since I live down that street too, just close by. Anyhow, I'm just concerned that we're going to be adding a large amount of traffic to that area on a road that has not been used to that much traffic. Now, I know there's only a few homes down in there. I think there's probably not more than 10 off the top of my head that I can think of in that neighborhood. But that is, there's not that many people. And there's, of course, farmers that go down that road and use that to access their farms and stuff. But that's lightweight use compared to what is done on the east side of Skousen.
Correct.
And so that's why my concern and why I wanted to ask you to stay is there is some way that we can put that into a budget in the coming years. Church is not going to be built tomorrow. It's going to be built 2 years from now,
Yeah, and
if they're lucky.
And that's the thing is, so nothing is set in stone from one year to the next. We're pretty fluid in how we move around, just like with the Hawk Hollow addition coming in, there's some needed changes at the intersection of Martin and Skousen. And so that'd be something that we look at, so that way we have enough funding and we can make those, so that the residents out on Martin Road and their concerns with turning lanes, and because there's going to be so much traffic going through there, we're already looking into that and starting to push funding for that, so we can have that prep, so when those homes do come in and those big traffic counts are coming in, somebody's not getting run over when they're trying to go to church or when they're trying to get out of the house.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with this. As this develops and then things start coming in, we'll start pushing funding towards those roads, because even Coolidge Avenue on the west side of Skousen, it's a whole different road from the east side of Skousen. This is the same thing with Vakian, and these are going to be main veins that go through that people are using more and more. And so it's, as Coolidge grows, these are the kind of roads that we improve.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate you staying.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, also, being a church, so it's not, in some areas, we have land uses that have a lot of traffic continuously, going all day long, like a supermarket. It's a church, so the owner may share when they have services. If it's Sunday, that's when the traffic will be there, and then they may have Sunday school in other times or other days, they can share that. Maybe during the week, there's not that much traffic at the church. They'll be able to answer those questions for you.
I don't want to limit what a church can do with their building. They can
sure.
have meetings there 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking, they can share what the reality is that they're planning to do themselves, not limiting them in any way. So-
We're putting 88 parking spaces, I plan, the number was 88 that I read, I believe. But that's probably on the site plan, not on the
Correct.
conditional use permit.
Right.
Well, the exhibit's being used for both because that's what they provided, so, but
Okay.
the actual aspect of parking spaces would be under the major site plan, but whatever the final design turns out to be, if it's the same size for the building for the calculations. As you can see, they have fortunately adequate area to make the adjustments for whatever they need for the parking.
Yeah, it appears from this map, the close-up, I guess, so you would say, that they have done really well at setting themselves away from their own property lines. Centered it very nicely
Yes.
away from the neighbors, per se, as much as can realistically be done.
Hang on.
Okay.
There's a public session that'll come up in just a little bit. Hang on.
The chair, yeah, because the chair needs,
Does the chair want to?
when he opens it up.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
Are we done, gentlemen?
Oh, I probably am,
Yeah.
yes.
No?
He's going to take this, then he'll open it.
No? Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, right? And we will open this to the public, so if you would like to speak, please do. Love to hear from you.
My name is Don Lejean. Could I ask you to put up the picture of looking south?
Here we go.
That's my house, right there. And this church is going to be built not 100, 200 feet from my house, my front door. I'm not looking forward to that. I didn't mind the fact that the house was going to be built there, but a 5,000-foot church, how many parking spots? 70-something parking spots?
88.
88 parking spots? And I'm not looking forward to this. I mean, I'm not looking forward to every day having this church there and church services going on every day, and then on Sunday having to put up with everything. I'm concerned about, this is my wife, I'm concerned about not only my property value, but my quality of life. And having to put up with living right next to a church that is planning on, well, you can see, blocking the view, making the noise, the cars, and everything that goes along with it. We moved here because we liked the small town, and we moved out there because we wanted to be away from everybody. We have a neighbor now, which is no problem, and there's a couple other neighbors that are not a problem. We figured the property would be sold in front to a house, to build a house. Well, that's okay. But a church, 5,000 square foot church, 88 parking spots, schools, all of that is going to take our property value and just lower it. Plus, the quality of life. A church, how would you like to wake up every day and look out your front, and there's a church 300 feet from your house, if that much? I can't say enough about it, but I am definitely against this because of the fact that we were blindsided when we got the letter. Nobody said anything. We figured that they were going to build a house there when we saw the gentleman measuring. But a church, 5,000 square foot church, right in front of my front door, plus 88 parking spots, people, the cars, the schools every day. We didn't move out there for that. And we didn't expect it to be happening. And we don't like it, and we don't want it. I'm sorry.
No, thank you, sir.
My name is Robbie Lejean. You met my husband. We do live at 980 North La Rose Road in Coolidge. We were able to build out there 10 years ago, and we had to jump through hoops to get it to where we could build out there. The only problem I've got, I would like to see exactly where the building is going to be. Is it going to be centered so that it is blocking our view? Is it going to be off to the side? Those are the things that I'm worried about. If it's going to hamper our resale value, then, no, I'm definitely against it. But I've got nothing against churches. That's God's house. So, again, I just want to know where it's going to be located.
So
it's gonna be
according
set up.
to the site map that was presented, the church is going to be centered. in the lot.
Okay, so that's my house.
No, the lot line's right here.
On the north end of that lot.
The property line
No.
is along, property line, your edge of your house, which is over here. Oh, down here, okay. Oh, underneath, okay, I got it, yes. Yeah, so there's a distance right there. That's,
Can't say enough about the fact about being blindsided about this church
dang it.
being built in front of my house. I mean, this is not right. Nobody asked us, nobody talked to us, nobody said anything. And here we are finding out that, sorry. Thank you, gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant and his architect are also here too today.
Yep, is there anybody else from the public first? Please, one of you come to the podium. Thank you, sir.
I can't say, I'm not from the area, so, and I understand your comments and appreciate it, but I can tell you in another, we have a family property, this, again, was 10 acres, a rural setting, we were the only ones for 50 years, it was all farm. And then neighbors moved in, and they were small acreage lots, blah, 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 blah. And then one of the neighbors built a home in a 2.5 acre lot right adjacent to us. And a Lutheran church came and bought it. And I'm not Lutheran, but I got to tell you, the experience of ours is altogether different than our family experience was altogether different than what you're worried about. We couldn't have nicer neighbors than this particular group, and in terms of value to our property, if anything, it's a positive thing. So I don't know. If it happens to go that way, I hope that's your. They're great neighbors. They're docile. I do anything for them. We have good relations with them. Yeah, well, fair enough, and it might be different, but our experience was very good.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. My name is Elliot LeBeau. I am a resident, and I am here to
Yeah, your address.
1036 South 3rd Street.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm here to testify that granting the conditional use permit for Calvary Chapel will be a step towards the highest and best use of that land out there. I have been a regular attender of Calvary Chapel for coming up on 2 years now, and I have witnessed and experienced how serious the church is about developing community members that are productive, beneficial, and gainful. And I'm glad to say that. So I hope you guys will approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public? Like to hear from the developer.
All right, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to take a look at what we've proposed. My name is Brad Jensen. I'm the pastor of Calvary Chapel, and we planted the church, started it in 2007. We've been in the community, ministering to the people here since 2007. We've been ministering in the prisons in the past. We've also started a drug and alcohol rehab program at one time. We also had the House of Hope ministry going, which then went into the Hope Women's Center here in this the city as well. But we're a Bible teaching church. We have senior ministries. We have our Sunday service, which meets at 9:30. We're usually done about 12. Someday, Lord willing, it would be nice to have a Wednesday night service. But yeah, and we've got children, youth, and we just enjoy each other, enjoy the fellowship, and enjoy the Lord.
How big's your congregation?
What's that?
How big's your congregation?
So we're about 130, 140. On a typical Sunday, about 105, maybe 90 people show up. That translates into about 45-ish cars currently. We have grown, which is a blessing. The past about year and a half, we have grown in number. And should the Lord continue to bless the church, I would imagine it would continue to grow. But I do, out of definite respect, appreciate the comments and just know that we would be wonderful neighbors and hopefully be a blessing and not a deterrent and to you and your family and your property. And did you serve in the military? 10 years. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So anyway, but I'm willing to take questions too. Any more?
I know Commissioner Bolin has a,
Always have a question, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Looking at this plan that they have on the board, there is considerable amount of land around the exterior of your parking lot and to the south of the actual building and thing. What's going on with that? Is that going to remain dirt? Is that going to be some kind of a cover put on that so that it doesn't blow? Will you reduce the dust and dirt in the area by doing something with that land?
Well, ultimately, we'd love to beautify it. So whatever we could do with that, but trees, we have nothing right now. This is just a simple, basic plan. But yeah, for sure, would love to do trees, something to reduce the dirt and make it more sightly.
Are you installing any kind of fencing around your church whatsoever? Anywhere?
Architect can speak to that. I mean, at some point, we'd probably have a boundary line as fencing, but nothing planned right now.
I'm trying to, I mean, are you intending to put a brick wall around the church that's 6 feet tall, which would affect the neighborhood from the view? I believe you'll have a beautiful building when you're done, and I believe you'll have beautiful landscaping around the parking area and stuff as shown. But I am concerned that it's going to be walled in where what the neighbors are going to see is a brick wall.
The intent would not be to do that. I think to keep the agricultural setting, the beauty out there, and that's part of why we love this area. We love the land. We love the potential of growth. You know, it kind of goes into what you're all speaking about tonight with the arteries and the growth on the west side, and we want to be a part of that, and we love that. So we'd want to try to maintain that beauty, the simplicity as well.
Will people be able to drive on the area around, in that dirt area around the outside of it? Or
No, that will not.
that won't be blocked in any way, or will it be blocked? I notice you've got an easement coming down this side of the land, and it looks like there is not an easement on the west, but on the east side, there's an easement going to the back properties, probably behind you, for legal access and egress to the other properties. I'm just concerned that it will become a area where people drive their cars, or extra parking, or whatever happens there, and that will create a very dusty situation for the neighborhood. And seems like in Coolidge, we have a adequate amount of dust already. I've been here for 60 years, so I have some idea what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so there is an adequate amount, so I'm just wondering what we can do to eliminate that without costing the church a lot of money. Director Lopez, is there anything that we can add to this conditional use permit that would control driving on their additional land?
You could put conditions on it that every effort will be made to keep people from driving there on the surrounding, you're talking about on the back of their property, right?
I'm talking
Yeah,
about on
'cause
the
they-
part that they're not going to develop at this time.
Yeah, because they will be required to put some sort of fencing up. It's part of the
That's what I
code.
thought. That is part
Yeah,
of
and the
our code.
architects here, I think they can talk about that. So that should keep cars from driving onto that property. And I think it's fenced now with some sort of, I don't know if there's some barbed wire up maybe
it
around the
shows
property.
barbed wire on the drawing.
Yeah, so I mean, people don't drive on that, but they, yeah, so they'll have that, so people won't drive on that, hopefully. And then the architects here, so you can talk about, because our code does require some block wall around.
Hi, I'm David Franklin of Franklin Architects. And so the city requires 6-inch concrete curbs around the parking area, around the paved areas, so you don't go out of the paved area.
Okay.
And of course, there'll be fences around the property, so, yeah, it's not intended that,
What are we
sometimes
talking
if
about?
we need to, we add decomposed granite to bare land. And that's usually a requirement of the town to cut down dust.
So there'll be a fence where the entrances and exits to the parking lot are not. It looks like there's only one entrance in and out of that parking lot. I wonder if we get 88 or 100 cars or whatever we get in there, one entrance exit seems to be very marginal to get that many cars in and out of a parking lot in a reasonable amount of time, to me.
Well, as far as churches go, I do churches with 1,000 seats. This is one of the smallest buildings I've done in years,
Great.
church.
And they only
And-
have one exit and entrance?
But they might have 2 exits, but there's still 1,000 people and not 2.
Right.
So this is not considered small on a parking lot scale, if you look at big parking lots and Safeways and stuff like that. We don't mind. Whatever the city asks us to do, we do. So we'll do whatever planning and zoning and plan reviewers tell us to do.
Commissioner Bolin, if I might, to address your concerns about parking on the dirt lots next to the buildings or the parking lot, the resolution for this item, Section 2E would say parking and driveway areas shall be adequately serviced per the Coolidge zoning code. So if at any time it's determined that they're parking on the dirt lot, the city could require them to pave that or come back for a modified site plan at that stage to get approval to turn that into a parking lot.
Okay, they talked about decomposed granite at a cost of $40 a ton. That's prohibitive to someone to put in, where if they got other things, they could do it for $10 a ton. And so I don't want to stipulate it be decomposed granite, but I do want to stipulate there's something put on to cover any area that's used for parking.
And I'd let Gilbert speak to that, but it's just whatever is required by our code. Anything that's used as parking or drive aisle would have to be, it just says adequately surfaced under the city code.
Yeah, our code requires dust resurface, and it lists asphalt and concrete as the approved parking for parking lots. So anything other than that would have to get a variance or,
I know that we don't enforce in some areas, and that's why I am concerned. I want the church to be very successful.
Sure.
I'm highly supportive of your church, okay? I'm highly supportive of every church. But I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can down the road when he gets 100 people or 100 cars in there with 200 people in his church and they're crammed in. I'm happy for him, okay? And he may want to increase the size of his building. I don't know that, the design doesn't look like it. To me, it's been designed to double the size someday, but I hope he can. That'd be one of the better things that happens. But that's my concern is, I don't want to create more dust. I want it to look good all the time, and I want it to be an attractive thing, so when the neighbors, these people or the other neighbors in the area, when they look out their door, it's not an eyesore they're looking at, it's something of professional beauty that somebody cares about, and including that ground, so there's not a lot of people driving around doing, I guess what used to be called Brodies when I was a kid, creating dust, okay? I don't know if they call them that today, because I don't know anybody that drives them. I'll have to ask my grandkids. Okay, so we do have a fence. Now, this fence that you're going to put around here, what's the material required by the city to have that fence? Is it block? Is it chain link? Is it wire fencing? What can they have?
it's block.
It's block.
And, yeah, if they want to do something other than that, we can consider alternatives, or they could apply it for a variance from the city council.
And the block fence has to be 6 feet tall or 4 feet?
6 foot.
So there will be a 6-foot fence around the entire property, or only a part of the property they're
That's what our
using?
code requires, unless we scale it back, but it requires it on the property line, right, Phil?
Typically, yes.
We could look at alternatives if Yeah, see, it's the property.
We're totally open to whatever you can work out. We don't want a big block wall either, so if, you know, whatever the neighbors would like
So if the
to,
neighbors don't want
would like
a
some kind of a
block wall to
fence, we can
stare
work
at,
that
then
out.
maybe with some, if the trees and landscaping will suffice, then maybe something we could take to the city council and ask them to waive that requirement with the input from the neighbors and that kind of thing.
Typically, churches are in the city when that happens,
Right.
and you have houses right next to you that have backyards, or you have other commercial. And so the rule is to have a 6-foot block wall on most cities in Arizona. But where this is, I don't see that as a need.
Yeah, it's a large property, so the cost of it, I think, would be.
Can
pretty
we
high.
recommend to the council that they consider variance on as far as the wall goes,
Or alternative fencing?
or an alternative fencing? We can't make the city council do anything, but can we recommend to them?
Well, this wouldn't go to the city council per se, because the conditional use stops with you unless there's a protest, and then the site plan also stops with you. So the only way would be if they elect to do a variance, then you could say if a variance is required, we recommend to be granted. You can make that part of, make it part of the motion. If that's what ends up happening, then it's in there in the public record, if you want to do that.
All right.
And then that way the council knows that you're in favor of some sort of relief from the block wall right now, because maybe the fencing that's used in rural areas, whether it be, you know, some sort of stock fencing or the cable is preferred by the neighbors and doesn't have such a visual impact. And then with the trees around it, maybe it can reduce that, you know, so if you have.
Yeah, I don't believe there's a security concern, much as there would be in a building that you need security around out there. So it's just a matter of something to give them property line definition so that people know that they're on the church property.
Yeah, and they can also, if they elect to, they can put security fencing closer to the building, you know, so that the building itself is locked up and protected if they don't have somebody taking care of it, but that's also possible.
It would
without
be
going-
it would be a lot less fence
Oh, absolutely.
of whatever nature if we made it the size of what they are currently going to develop. And then if they, how do we word that so that if they increase the size, the fence will have to increase along with the increased use? You've had the experience doing this before, I haven't. How would that work so that, let's say they need to use that back area that's not going to be used now for the church, how would we make it so that the church would have to include a fence on that new land, on the bottom land that they're not going to be using?
Well, we would have to come back for approvals, and the town is very good at asking us to do stuff that we have no choice, we're going to do it. So every time, if there's going to be an expansion someday, you're going to go through this whole process again and require us to do things. So
Is that true, Gilbert, that if they wanted to fence a larger portion of their own land, that they'd have to get a new permit or a new deal
site
to do
plan.
that?
If they wanted to expand the area or use, yes, it would require, if it's minor, it would just be an amendment to, we could do it administratively. If it's pretty major change, then I think we have to come back to.
It'd be a major site plan
Yeah.
revision.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at that. I think I have the ability, they do. Here, is the screen. Can I do anything? So here, let's say we're trying to hide option construction. To existing or future large lot, single family development.
Just to revise the major site plan.
So,
I'd like to keep the fence at a minimum, the brick wall fence.
at this time, the church has no desire for a fence. So the only fence we're putting up is if
The city,
the city tells us to, it helps the neighbors. So we don't care if there's a fence at all.
we're looking at the section on screening. It looks like it does give us, the Planning and Zoning Commission does some discretion about the type of fencing, because it basically says,
this is the.
it said you can require an alternative method of screening, for different character density intensities, so it could be, so open space with landscaping, earth berms, particularly with parking lots, lower screen walls landscaping, so maybe not 6 foot, other screening approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, so alternative methods of screening shall be implemented when it's the best interest of the affected properties deemed by the Planning and Zoning Commission to provide more acceptable screening than provided by a screen wall. So if you want to do a combination of berms or say put some landscaping there that you feel is adequate, and that could be done on the site plan, this is a condition.
Right.
When we look at the site plan, we could say, okay, would it be more appealing to the neighbors to have, different types of landscaping in the back than a 6-foot block wall? And then you can determine that, and that's, so, I mean, this gives you the authority to determine the screening in a case like this, because it's against housing, so the section, our attorney that's here pointed out, allows you to make that call, because generally it's 6 foot most of the time, everything on businesses, because they're against residential, but there is a section that allows you, in special circumstances, to make a call that's different, and we can accept.
I'd like to hear from the neighbors again.
Can we ask the neighbors their opinion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please, sir.
They don't want it
One
there.
one of
That's
you
their
step up to
opinion.
the.
I know. If you had to have one though, because the code says they have to have
I'd like to
one.
address you about the issue of dirt. We've lived there since 2012. There's nothing that you can do on that piece of 4-acre property that's going to stop the dirt from being all over. Every time the wind picks up, and the wind is always blowing out there because there is nothing out there. And the whole place, a lot of times, is nothing but dirt. When those haboobs or whatever that you hear about in Phoenix, we see them 20 minutes before.
We're aware of that.
The dust is all over. Nothing can stop it unless you could put 100 or more trees than you can count.
Right.
The property to the west of this, that's ours. We own that also.
Can't stop it.
And as far as a fence, a 6-foot fence in front of my house, the gentleman just said that, plants and things like that, trees, shrubs, something that would block the church, that would be somewhat accessible. Don't like the idea of the church at all being out there.
We know that.
We get that,
Right.
right? But we have to come to some compromise, right?
The only
And,
compromise is if it.
we're willing to revise the city code and work with you on some.
Work with the city
wi-
code.
Work within our ability, right, in our code to help you.
It would be more what Mr. Lopez said about a berm or something rather than a 6-foot fence. That
Okay.
would be more acceptable.
Okay.
That's what we think too. It would be better, more pleasing to the eye to see a bunch of bushes and trees
Than a
as well
brick
as the
wall.
mountains to the west, which will be, the way your house sets back, I think you'll look behind the physical buildings and still be able to see the beautiful mountains that are to the west of our city.
We're directly behind the center of that building.
Okay. You're directly behind the center of that building. Well, then you'll only see the building looking north, correct?
Exactly right. That's all.
So if it's treed across the back of it, all you'll see is trees. And trees are usually pretty good.
That would be acceptable if the plan goes through.
Okay.
And as far as that's LaRose Road on the other, on the right-hand side that you're looking at.
Right.
Yeah,
That's our address.
okay.
Thank
And
you, John.
again, like I said, the dust, there's nothing you can do, nothing at all.
Do what we can, though.
Anything else, sir?
Okay. Don't, thank you.
Trying to find a resolution.
Thank
for
you, sir.
And the church and everybody else. We want to have peace and harmony.
You ready to close this
Yeah.
public meeting and
Yes.
get a motion?
Anybody else?
I'd like to add something. So, I don't usually say a lot, but this is interesting to me. So I looked it up. Google's awesome. I could not find anywhere where it said that a church would bring down the property value of a home. A bad school will. A strip club, I couldn't believe that one. But anyway, A homeless shelter, a cemetery, funeral home, power plant, shooting range, and a hospital will all bring a church, I couldn't find it.
It doesn't exist. I
If
can tell
anything,
you.
it goes up.
As a real estate agent, I can tell you it doesn't.
Thank you, sir. That's all I got.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, and one more thing. You guys will probably find more friends than you'll know what to do with out there when the church comes out, if the church gets there.
Okay.
All right. At this time, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Cool PZ 2307, a conditional use permit for the use of the Calvary Chapel Church of Coolidge.
I second it.
And the
And the
resolution?
resolution.
And there is.
And the resolution.
Resolution,
Yes,
excuse
thank
me.
you.
Please call it out.
Just a second, let me pull it up.
Cool PZ 2307.
Resolution Cool PZ 2307.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Last item on the agenda is the major site plan for this very same property. Okay, Cool PZ 230734, major site plan application submitted by Franklin Architects on behalf of Brad Jensen and the Calvary Chapel Church of Coolidge for approximately 5,000 square foot of church building as situated in agricultural zoning district and located 2/3 of a mile west of the intersection of Skousen and Vaca Inn Road. Same parcel number, 209-19007J. Director Lopez or Phil, please.
Yes, this is just the, of course, the site plan where you can add the conditions that you can state. You could have done it in the resolution, but we're in the conditional use, but you can add it to the site plan because that's approving. So just state that as the Planning and Zoning Commission, you feel that, and with the applicants and surrounding neighbors' approval, that you won't require the wall, and that you'd rather see landscaping and some buffering of that type, and then it'll be part of the record, and then we'll follow that in approving, and doing the site plan review, because eventually it'll come in, the civils will come in, the construction plans, and that's where we'll tie it down and make sure it's on there, the way you approved it.
So how do we approve the raised earth berm?
You can do a combination and say, it's as it talks about in the zoning code, the alternative, we would approve landscaping, trees, some berming, if that's the case, because you'll see some areas where there'll be some berming and then there'll be a gap and then some landscaping. So it tries to break it up. You don't want to build a big old dike right there with.
It honestly gives that illusion that nothing's there.
Yeah, it'll block the building if they do the landscaping right, and
Right.
it'll certainly bring down the elevation of the building. It may not hide it completely, but when trees grow pretty large, some trees grow 35, 40 feet tall, so eventually they will, block
Right.
it.
Chairman Halby and Director Lopez, I am still concerned about the driveway. I still think that the 30-foot wide driveway coming in and out of there is probably adequate, but it could be, since we're building this now, we have the space, why not make two of them? I don't know what the additional cost would be, but I think it'd be a lot cheaper to do that now than to do it 5 years from now. And in my expectation, of course, is the church will grow, especially with a beautiful building and a beautiful grounds around it. It's going to have a increase in number of people wanting to attend that church. And he's got a track record. He's been here a long time, and he's been highly involved in the community for a long time. So this is not somebody that came in out of town and is here for, a year or two and going to be gone. He's going to be here for the duration. So I think that we need to ask the developer to give us two driveways, one in and one out, or to be used either way. a 30-foot driveway is the minimum, I think, for the fire department, I believe, but I'm not sure of that.
Well, the fire department commented, he said entrances are to be 24 foot wide and travel lanes to be minimum of 20 feet, 30 feet provided. So they're wider than what's needed. They said otherwise the plans appear to be in conformance with adopted code. That's from the fire department. So
Okay.
they comply with everything right now. The thing too is they'll have to, because they're tying into a city road, if there's some culverts or bar ditches, they'll have to build that underneath it. So if you put 2 driveways in, now you double the cost.
So Phil, what's the parking requirement for this property?
Well, the calculations based upon our code are listed on the front page of the site plan as it currently exists. Now, that's based upon the number. As far as the dimensioning goes, there's some added. But obviously, as Gilbert said, as we proceed to receive updated site plans and the civils and things, we'll be double checking those things, especially with the recent discussions concerning parking and widths and stuff, to ensure that they are compliant with those requirements. And once again, luckily, they've got plenty of land if they need to add a little bit on either side of the parking lot, so to say.
Well, and my thought was in relation to what Commissioner Boland just said, about the additional roadway, right? With the addition of that, you're gonna lose 4 parking spaces. So, essentially, right? So with that addition, are we still within our requirement, our parking requirement? If
Well-
he lost 4 spaces
mean-
and had 84 instead of 88?
He'll need to recalculate, the architect will have to look at that and see if they have to add more parking area to it to make up for those. Because it actually will, when we get the civils in, and then once they determine for sure the building size, it'll be 1 space per every 4 seats of assembly area. So every part of the building has a number attached to it on the size by the building code, the international building code.
Right.
So I know the architect talked to, I think he talked to our building official, and did they
Yes.
talk to Stantec also?
I don't
I don't know
know.
if they, did you talk to Stantec, the plans examiner for or just, or Dennis Gillespie?
I did not talk to Stantec.
Okay,
I
so
talked to
Dennis
your-
is always in contact with Stantec, but we went out, I was there with Dennis, was calculating the loads, and we were looking at different things on what, so everything has, as an architect, everything has load calculation
We have
based
a
on the
parking
area.
calculation on the site plan, and it says we need 85 at this time with this layout. But I think we don't care if you want 2 driveways, that's better for us, so.
Okay.
Well, I think that, Pastor, you picked a perfect piece of property. That area, we just granted a whole bunch of brand-new homes to be built out there, right? So that whole entire area is gonna start to develop, and you may need 2 driveways.
Eventually
To the
we
north.
would, so.
Yeah.
We could easily change the site plan and have a driveway on each end of this design. I'd try to make it so I only lose 3 spaces. We can probably make that happen.
If
We'll be
he
at
does
85.
that, Gilbert, does he have to resubmit? Or we don't have to?
Not for
we
you
can-
guys.
We can say that right here,
Yeah,
right now.
you can give direction that you like to see 2 driveways entrances, and that'll be part of the review.
Perfect.
When the civils come in.
Perfect.
So that's no problem,
I had talked with the fire chief about 2 driveways like that, just thinking like you guys were, but he said that he was okay with the 1, but 2.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt, it'll be nice to get
2 will
in,
be
get
a
out
lot
sooner.
better traffic flow
Yeah.
in and out of the place, whether it be 45 cars or 100 cars, and he has to extend his parking east and west into his open land that he's got. Again, it will be well worth it to him to do that. I just think that doing the driveways now will be more uniform and look better from our architectural standpoint to see than to have one in the center and then one off to one side somewhere down the road. The other thing is, we should hopefully, if this group agrees to use alternative
Screening.
fencing of some type, or trees and bushes as blockage, it will save a lot of money. That, last time I checked, block fencing is about $50 a foot, and there's a lot of feet there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my theory is let's put plants there on drip system and make it look beautiful. And, give them plenty of ways to get in and out. I don't know how to say that in a resolution, but after we have the open meeting, we'll.
Yeah, we've got the recommendations, and you can add them to that.
Okay.
That, yeah, just say, we recommend two entrances, and to be, and we'll look at it during the civil review, so.
Okay.
And
You
then,
know,
because
and
that'll
I-
include Ben and all, because it's tying into a state, or a city road, not a state road. So Ben Navarro, their public works engineer, will be looking at the entrances, and so will the fire department.
Perfect.
So they're involved, in that process.
I look at the Hope Church on the boulevard, and they do great work, but they've only got one way in and one way. And on some days, there's very congested there, right? And hopefully we fix that for you right up front, and you don't experience that, and you can better utilize that.
We're not trying to cost the church more money. We're trying to make a product that will be long-term, as well as being very publicly friendly to neighbors and people just driving down the road.
And you're right, it'll help if there's expansion.
Exactly.
They're gonna need another driveway anyway, so it'd be nice to have them placed on each end of the parking lot, and it'll definitely make a better way. So we're totally for two driveways and alternate fencing. So you can just say alternate fencing is approved.
Alternative.
Yeah.
Alternative.
You can make that just part of the motion when you approve it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Alternative fencing, and I will describe alternative fencing being plants, bushes, and other things that are decorative in nature, okay?
That'll work.
Are we good?
Because that's what I think it should look like, I guess, in my brain.
Sure, absolutely.
This also is a public hearing though, right?
Yes.
So let's
To everybody
please, at this time, let's open it to the public
Are we, is this
300 feet. Yeah, so
Oh,
to
within-
residents within 300 feet.
within 300
within
feet?
300 feet, yeah?
Good evening. I'm Vaughn Matthews. I live in Anthem, but I'm on the council for Pastor Brad over here. I have built churches all my ministry. I built one church for 800 people, another church for 1,500 people, and both of them had two entrances and exits. And so I think having two of them is more productive in the long run. It makes us a smoother flow. The congestion is not as bad. In fact, in one particular church, we had to bring police out when our services would exit because it was so crowded. So I do agree. It's not my place to say what to do, but I do agree on having two entrances or two exits there because it does make the flow go a lot quicker. So that's my 2 cents.
And what do you feel about fences? Do you think a 6-foot block wall around the church would look better than a bunch of trees and bushes?
No. If you, in fact, again, I have built churches all my ministry, and I don't think I've ever put a block wall around any of them. In one particular church, we built a 1,500-seat sanctuary and no fencing around it at all. And then also houses began to develop just like we're seeing here take place. And the concern that was here as far as property, the actual property went up in value around there. But I've never built anything that's had a block wall around it.
If a subdivision comes into that area and buys up the existing home subdivision, they're going to put a wall around it. And they have to put a wall around it. That's part of our code.
That's right.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the church. And if the church has a beautiful area, why don't we just let the world see it?
I think just what you had shared here earlier, I've been here the whole meeting, about putting in the plants, trees, shrubbery, it just makes it look nice. And it blends in with the community. Every housing development they build around here, they're going to have a 6-foot wall up. It's just, it's what it is. But if you go to churches around here, whether you go to large churches or small churches, you very seldom ever see any kind of a block wall.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boland, if I might, it sounds like there might be a motion incoming. If you would use the term screening, that's how our zoning code's defined. It's not fencing, it's screening, because it can be a wall, it can be a fence, it can be shrubbery, it can be any number.
Word screening, thank you. That's why you're here, is to get me straight.
All right. So at this time, we'll close the public and we'll entertain a motion.
Chairman, I make a motion that we accept Cool PZ 230734 with the recommended items from the city, as well as the addition of 2 entrances into the property that meet the fire code and the public works code, as well as screening, the use of screening around the property to give
More aesthetic.
a location or an area of the church. So, but it would be screening.
Commissioner Bowling, is it screening, so in lieu of a wall?
Screening in lieu of a wall, correct.
I'll second.
Can I get a second?
Second.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Director Lopez, reports from the director.
Just things are moving forward. We're answering a lot of project information forms from the ACA down at IPAS. We should be getting an update from P&G on their start date. We're getting, they're working on that. When they'll break ground, probably be in 24, the early part of 24 sometime. And then Nicola's moving forward with their the hydrogen trucks. They're manufacturing those. They stopped production of the electric ones, hydrogen trucks right now. So we're working with them to finalize where they're at now. They'll stop expansion of the building. They're about at 700,000 square. And then I calculated the percentage of the building to what was approved. So we'll require some landscaping that's around the parking lot and do it that way. So they can keep going. And the other, we're meeting with Wilson and Company to talk about the infrastructure. So we're on the, we move forward to put in the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant. So that's ongoing discussion with all the groups out there. In town, we've got projects going through, a lot of houses. We're working with Arizona Water on some of the, you've seen around town, some of the, next to the whole cam in Heartland, they're putting in a big tank there and all that for water treatment to be able to add more houses to it. We're working with Century Complete to purchase some lots within Cross Creek. And so there, you'll see some product going in there. From Century Complete, it has to meet the same design criteria that the houses that are being now. So we looked at those elevations and approved them. So they're nice homes. So they match what's being built. And let's see what else. We've got the solar. We've got a lot of the solar going forward. We've got Brittle Bush, which is south of Bartlett, east of 87, beyond the Trans-Canada SRP plant on the east side. And that one's going forward. There's one south of that on Steel Road called Story Solar, and that one's going forward and developing that. There's some activity on the Saint Solar on some of the battery storage systems on that one. And then the 11 Mile Corner Solar is going pretty well. They're adding some of the electrical substation to that. We're working with them on that. And then the battery storage, and then also the piling in where they put the assembled, the panels that tilt. And so that's all ongoing right now. There's a lot of activity in that area. And then we're still building houses. We just, they've dropped a little bit because the interest
They
rates.
slowed down a little bit, but they're still building.
Yeah,
They're still out there
we're
every
still
morning.
issuing permits. So, and then we're waiting for, I think, Hawk Hollow to come in and and I think they're working on their plans, right?
Yeah, they're still updating. They submitted to us about a month ago, and we had some extensive on and off-site comment for them involving other city departments.
Stantec's got that too.
I don't know. I think they might.
Yeah, the civils go to Stantec, so we use the third party. And then what else do we have? the Burger King. I know our reporter's here, and she talked to the Burger King folks, and I think it's, look, there was an article in the paper, thank you for writing that. And I think they said after the first part of '24? Okay, first quarter of '24, so they'll go. I know when I talked to Brad, he's with the franchisee, they had ordered the equipment for the restaurant. And so they're moving forward with that. Just takes a while with, I think supply chain and getting contractors and all that. So,
They build pretty quick, though.
yeah, once they get
Once
going,
they break
yeah,
ground.
it goes up, right?
I heard you mention something about Filiberto's and ADOT. So
Yeah,
they're-
we haven't had the recent update. I know we called, when we talked to ADOT, we talked to all the projects that were going on and asked them where that was. And they said they've been in contact with them and weren't requiring as much, like changing the ADA sidewalks or anything like that. I think they were working on the entryway. But we'll call them and find out where they're at. We haven't seen the plans. They haven't come in yet, right?
No.
Yeah, so we haven't seen that. Usually I get emails on what's coming in and out because there's so much stuff moving back and forth. You're like, it's all over. It's a lot. It's still a lot of activity. I mean,
Yeah.
Director Lopez, do we have an empty seat on our board now?
Yes, yeah. I compile the applications that we have at this time, so we'll be working with the council's committee, the two people that are on it. I believe it's Vice Mayor Henry and maybe Eric Daniels, I think. And so we already contacted them. They were going to be bringing this. So we'll get that scheduled as soon as possible. Also, another exciting thing we're working. So we will follow it up. I'm getting calls from some of the city council members asking me why the seat's not filled yet. So yeah, and so we're also working on a regional park concept on the other side of Cavett. And it's pretty nice, and it'll be phased in, and then what we're thinking of is the corner, be the southeast corner of Skousen and Coolidge, probably 6 acres of it, we're thinking of making that available for commercial development that would help enhance the park. Like say they could have some food eateries or something on these. It's against, because there's an amphitheater that's planned depending on what the design's accepted. And so we've just barely got some concepts that we're looking. We meet with them once a week through the Parks Department, the meetings are Phil, myself, Ben Navarro, Ricky Lapaya, Rick Miller, of course, and so we're with the design team and all that. So it's pretty exciting. It'll come up.
Could we put in a area out there that be designed for mobile food service, quote, food trucks, food trailers, whatever there are, so that there could legally be in the city where multiple ones could be done on I don't want to call it a special event basis, but on like a Friday or a Saturday type thing that they could do that, rather than have them lining up and down the boulevard in multiple spots and in areas that are not really cleared for doing what they're doing because they don't have pavement under them and they have multiple units in a area that is against code because they need 1,000 feet between them.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I really am.
Well, good.
That was something that I did want to ask you about.
Yeah, now we're actively working on it with our attorneys, and it's on the list of things that we had to look at to whether we change the code. And I don't know if you want to just talk about the model code that we could look at.
And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we can't really discuss too much about it, just because it's not agendized for any kind of discussion. What I can speak to that is we are talking about a potential code amendment. If there is one, it would come back to planning and zoning for discussion, modification, and then recommendation to city council. But I think it's well heard that there's issues, and I can take it this is P&Z directing staff to look into those issues. And I don't want to shut down the conversation on it. It's just, unfortunately, we can't just because it's not agendized.
Yeah, and we are taking any action of any of the places that have exceed the number allowed of food trucks. We're notifying them through the code enforcement portion of it. They're allowed to have one at a time. They have to be 1,320 feet apart. So we're notifying those that aren't in complete compliance with that. So that's ongoing. So I'm working with our code enforcement team
Well, I
to
won't
take care of
discuss
that.
it anymore, but I would like that brought on to an agenda meeting.
Well, as soon as we can, we'll get ready. It's not as simple as just, there's complexities to it. And
I know.
how do we deal with everybody that's there, that's legal, because they have business licenses, we've issued them. And, because there's a section of the code that allows them as an accessory to the main use of the property. So that's what was been used quite a while, for all mobile vendors, not just food. And so, they've gotten business licenses based on that. And Rick and I have talked through that, and also some of the council, so,
So
we'll come
some of
back
that
to-
though falls into the public safety realm.
But we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, that's,
But please, if you can, agendize that, so we can.
as soon as we can.
So, Gil, I'd like to add one more thing. So, not to extend this thing, as the open spaces and the parks are spread out. So one thing, of course, I work with City of Casa Grande, so I can speak to this directly.
Yeah.
Is you're looking down the road for, of course, with more services, more money. We finally had to implement park rangers
Oh, yeah.
because to me, they're a force multiplier. They can't take action, but they share a radio with us.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that open gates, shut gates, and the old fight over the Ramada and who's got it next and whatnot. So I don't know if that was an item to look at, but I certainly think that as we expand our trails and open spaces, that they were under us at the PD at one point, but now they're Parks and Rec where I think they should have been. If that isn't something that isn't currently being proposed, I think would definitely need to be looked at for expanding services and quality of life here in the city.
No, I think Parks and Rec Director has looked into that, and it's budget adding some people to it. And yeah, we worked real close. In Glendale, we had some really good park ranger program, and they did exactly that. They ran it, and some of them in some cities do have police powers. Depends on how the city does that, but so certainly that's a great comment. Thank you, because that is true. It's getting expanded, so operating and maintenance costs come along with it. So.
Right.
But it's a great asset to the community, so that's all I have.
Awesome.
Okay, close this down.
Gentlemen, no, we're good? All right,
Move we adjourn.
I'll make,
I second it.
all in favor?
Wait,
Aye.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Sir?
there's a call to the public that has
Oh,
not.
that is, see?
Call to the public.
Ken, you probably always get me on this too.
Just want to go home.
This is open, so we will do a call to the public. If anybody from the public wants to come and speak at the podium, please, at this time. No takers? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. And now I'll accept a motion
Move that
to
we
adjourn.
adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.